Good evening everybody and welcome back to the Retro Review. My name is Richard Brooks, aka the Blue-Eyed Geek, and over the last couple of weeks we've been looking at the genre films pumped out by Hollywood in the 1980s, mainly science fiction, fantasy and horror films. And it is my belief, as I've said many times before, that the 1980s was in fact the last decade of originality. Tonight's Retro Review is centered around the 1983 science fiction fantasy film Krull. Krull is a Marmite movie. You either love it or you hate it. As many space fans will know, some people prefer it to Hawk the Slayer, although in my opinion Hawk the Slayer is rubbish. That's right, Bill Bailey, come and get me. In joke. So a little bit about the story itself. Now Krull is actually, the title of the film Krull is actually the world itself, the world it is set on, Krull. And one day, the Beast, an intergalactic being of great power, and his army of slayers land on the world of Krull. Now, the Black Fortress itself can move at any point at any time to any part of Krull, making it impossible to find. Beast's army of slayers ravage the world, leaving two kings to unite, put their differences aside, and unite their armies. They do this by having an arranged marriage between one king's son, Prince Krull, and the other king's daughter, Princess Lissa. During the wedding ceremony, the Slayers arrive to take Lissa to the Black Fortress to be wed to the Beast himself, the Beast believing that this will give him power over the world. Prince Krull, left for dead, is revived by an old man that comes down from the mountains. Freddie Francis plays this role. The name of the old man is Amir. It's a typical Obi-Wan role, which lends credence to the fact that a lot of the influence that Star Wars had went into Krull itself, as it did in many films in the 1980s. Star Wars was the big thing, and a lot of films tried to copy it. Now back to the story, the old man tells him that they can find the Black Fortress if they go and visit this old seer that lives in the mountains. But first they have to get a weapon called the glaive. I'll show you what it looks like. The glaive itself is a 5-pointed star. It's like shuriken, a ninja shuriken that you throw, and it's controlled by sort of telepathy. And it's actually seen first in the credit sequences. And Prince Krull goes into this volcano to retrieve it. In probably one of the most far-fetched scenes of the film, he has to reach his hand in lava to retrieve the glaive. As I said, very far-fetched, but it seems to add a bit of weight to the mythic, epic quality of the film. So on the way to visit the old seer that lives in the mountains, they pick up some travelling companions, namely Urgo the Magnificent, a bumbling wizard whose spells always seem to go wrong. There's also a group of bandits who try to attack Prince Krull, but Prince Krull convinces them to join him on his quest. The bandits agree, only to say afterwards that they will do this only if they are released from captivity. 4 actors you may recognise, or British viewers will recognise, in the cast of bandits. There's Todd Carty, who played Tucker in Grange Hill. There's also Robbie Coltrane. Most viewers will recognise him as Hagrid in Harry Potter. Liam Neeson is one of his earlier roles, and also the British actor Alan Armstrong, who appeared in Braveheart, as well as the TV series Adrian Mole, and the films Van Helsing and The Mummy Returns. Now, after they've teamed up with the bandits and Urgo the Magnificent, they're also joined by Rel, a Cyclops. Now, Cyclopses made a deal with the Beast eons ago to gain the power to look into the future if they gave up one of their eyes. Unfortunately, they were tricked by the Beasts. They can only see the time that they will die. This is a recurring thing throughout the film, that Rel will help them up until the moment he knows he's going to die. And I won't spoil what happens, but it is quite tragic what happens to the character. He's a wonderful character. Can't remember the actor's name, but he did appear in some of the Carry On films. So they go to see the blind seer, but are attacked by the Beast's slayers who killed the seer. So they're wondering what to do, and Amir says, we'll go and see the Widow of the Web, a woman he has had a previous relationship with. The Widow of the Web, who sits in a webbed mountain fortress guarded by a giant spider, agrees to help them and tells them where the Black Fortress is. So the stage is set for a three-pronged set piece. Now this was originally came about during Return of the Jedi. The three-pronged set piece is what happens when you have a giant ending on three fronts, like in Jedi, where you had the Forest Moon of Endor battle on the ground, the lightsaber battle, and the space attack. It starts off with the heroes riding on powerfully fast horses to the Black Fortress, storming the Black Fortress. Colwyn goes off with the glaive to rescue Lyssa and fight the beast. The bandits are left to tackle the slayers, and many rooms of traps and dangers. Now, Krull itself was the brainchild of David Putnam, who wanted to do a British fantasy film, and got many Americans involved in this, but it mainly is a British production. It was filmed at Pinewood Studios on 23 stages, one of the largest productions at the time. And unfortunately, Krull came out in 1983 just as Jedi was coming out, and it got lost in the wake of Jedi, which is a shame because for its time, Krull is a very inventive, rich sci-fi fantasy film. It has many great elements to it, mainly the direction by Peter Yates, who directed Bullitt, the Steve McQueen film. Wonderful score by James Horner, who won the Oscars for Braveheart, Titanic. He recently did Avatar and the remake of The Karate Kid. This was Horner's fourth score, as he had already done the Roger Corman picture Battle Beyond the Stars and Humanoids from the Deep, and he had also done Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan. The score itself is a wonderful mixture of bombastic, operatic heroicness and soft, subtle emotion, and it's these strengths that play out through the film that highlight some of the scenes, especially the love scenes are given such beauty. I've said it many times before, a great score can heighten great scenes. But for me, one of the best things about the film are the visual effects. Now, in this day of CGI, we are jaded, we know it all, we think that one click of a mouse button can make a great action sequence. The visual effects of Krull are different. They're probably, the 1980s was the last time that people used model effects. They were still using them in the 1990s, but they were aided by computers. In Krull, the model effects are done by Derek Meddins, who had done special effects work on Jerry Anderson's Thunderbirds TV series, as well as miniatures and model effects for the Superman films, Batman, and the James Bond films. Unfortunately, Derek Meddins died in the late 90s, and it's a shame because he was a master of what he did. He could make a miniature look like reality. If you watch Thunderbirds, the 60s British TV series, you will see why. Now finally, there's an interesting note about Krull itself. Lyssa Anthony, the actress who plays Princess Lyssa, who some people may remember from Crossroads, the British soap opera. She was dubbed in America by the actress Lindsay Krause, who played Maggie Walsh in the 4th series of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now Krull itself, I remember renting out time and time again. It starts off with a wonderful science fiction sequence as the Black Fortress is flying through space, coupled with James Horner's score and that brilliant reveal of the logo where the glaive just goes across the screen and reveals the title Krull. From that moment on I was hooked, and I got into it. Quest movies are some of the best movies around, because you're with the characters, you are on the journey, you are going through the world of Krull, you are facing the dangers, and you get to know the characters. Wonderful subtle moments of humour coupled with human drama, and it makes it even more sadder when you lose a character in the film because you were invested in them. Many a times these days films just introduce a character and chuck them away, and we just don't care about it. Krull was a film where I actually cared about the characters. The beast itself, in a wonderful reveal, is this gigantic, ugly thing. And again, wonderful visual effects work by Derek Meddins. The end fight sequence where Colwyn utilizes the glaive against the beast is brilliant, as the beast is firing bolts of lightning at it. And the Slayers themselves, black armoured soldiers with lightning spears, who screech horribly when they die and their brains fall out. Wonderfully nuts. Gross, but wonderfully nuts. Krull is always relegated to Channel 5 late in the afternoon. Not many people get a chance to catch it, but I do recommend you go and you buy a copy of the DVD, because it is a wonderfully cheesy film. It's brilliant. The DVD itself has some great features. There's Journey to Krull, which is a vintage featurette. The colour just went funny there. Sorry, guys. There's Journey to Krull, a vintage featurette. Now, these days, making-ofs are just 10-minute promos where actors gush about the films. The making-ofs in the 1980s were brutally honest and held nothing back. Gave you a wonderful view of what the technicians did. And there's also an animated comic book. It's the original comic book adaptation done by Marvel in the 80s, set to the score and the actors' voices from the film. You may remember that Watchmen did something similar with the original graphic novel. Now, there's also some commentaries, wonderfully revealing commentaries with Ken Marshall, who plays Prince Colwyn, and Lissa Anthony, who plays Princess Lissa. And there's also the trailers and some brilliant galleries as well. I love the old black and white behind-the-scenes photos. Really puts you there in the set with them. Now, that's all for Krull. Now, this week, I was supposed to have this review done last week, but I was incredibly busy, so my apologies for this review being late. You will be getting a double dose, though. Not only are you getting this video, but on Wednesday night you will be getting Tron. Now, this will be in time for the release of Tron Legacy, which opens on Friday. I'll be going to see that with my brother, and I'm looking forward to it thoroughly. So, if you have any questions, if you want to know a bit more about Krull, or if you want if you want to give me a suggestion for a retro review, contact me. You'll see how at the end of this video. In the meantime, take care, guys, and see you all soon.